Good.
We're going to start this week by talking about transfers, but not as you'd expect. A lot of great performances from the likes of Declan Rice and Caicedo, who are, of course, £100 million signings. And it got us thinking about where they rank, didn't it, in terms of the greatest £100 million signings.
Yeah, I think this debate has been doing the rounds a little bit.
Yeah.
Who is the best ever £100 million plus signing? So we can have a look at all of the £100 million plus signings according to the Sky Sports Stats Department.
Yes.
Okay, so this
verified.
is players and fees that include potential add-ons. So all the way from Harry Kane's £100 million up to Neymar's £198 million. 16 players on that list for us to talk about today. And the way we're going to do this is in a simple tier list fashion. A all the way down to E. Ben is going to do it in chronological order.
Yes.
A couple of rules. You've got to have a player in each category, but you can only have one in A. So A is reserved for the best £100 million plus transfer in history.
Quite right.
It's fine by me, mate. I've got my name.
Okay,
Wow.
perfect. Who are we starting with? I think it's Neymar, isn't it?
Yeah.
The most expensive signing of all time.
Yes. I think Neymar's a difficult one because he obviously, like you said, he arrived at that expectation. We're judging these guys on being... They're all kind of, other than the likes of Mbappe, Coutinho, they're all around that £100 million mark. Neymar is pretty much double that for most of these guys. But you can't ignore what he did do. I don't think, obviously, people will judge Neymar and they'll judge Mbappe through the lens of not setting out the main goal at PSG, which was going to win the Champions League, which is what, obviously, they ended up doing last year. People will look back on Mbappe and Neymar's time less fondly because of what the team went on to do under Luis Enrique, kind of making it more about the collective rather than these individual stars. But you cannot ignore what Neymar actually did do. And I don't think it's necessarily down to him specifically or Mbappe specifically that they didn't go on and achieve that huge goal they set out to win the Champions League. I don't think... Look, he's not obviously nowhere near in contention for A. I think some people say... for me, he's in B. Like, his goal and assist record there is absolutely insane. He had some huge performances in massive games. When they got to the Champions League final in 2020, in COVID, huge performance against Atalanta in the quarter-final. You could argue, though, in that run, that players like Mbappe, like Di Maria, were actually maybe more influential than him over the course of the campaign. I think he only scored 3 goals. I think Di Maria and maybe Mbappe got more assists than him in that run. But over his time at PSG, obviously he was plagued by injuries a little bit as well. That's kind of the downturn of him from a physical point of view. He obviously went to PSG to get away from kind of the being in Messi's shadow, want to go and win a Ballon d'Or, all those kind of things, which, look, he didn't do. But I think that's not just down to him. Some of the circumstances didn't quite align for him there. But I think, an amazing player that I don't think you can judge too harshly for his time there. So I'd put him in B. I mean, there'll be players that will be above him in that category, but I'd put him in B.
Just to clarify as well, we are doing this based on the transfer to that club. So this isn't Neymar's career. This is not Neymar at Barcelona. This is the actual £100 million plus price. So this is Neymar at PSG, and you're putting him in B.
Yeah,
Pick him up.
I think, obviously, again, there's some maybe...
You can put him next to the B.
Well, no, I was going to say, there'll be ones that'll be above him. I will just move him down when it comes to it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to move
in the tier.
You're doing tiers.
I've got tiers, mate.
Next up, we're doing this in chronological order, as Joe said, to the next signing, who ironically is the second most expensive, 166 million. And again, as we say, this is Mbappe for PSG specifically.
Again, I think people underestimate maybe the transformative impact that Mbappe and Neymar had on PSG from like a cultural point of view, almost in terms of elevating the status of the club. Like I said, they didn't go on to achieve what many people predicted them to or what they set out to do in terms of winning the Champions League. But Mbappe's record there, again, absolutely insane, was arguably one of the best players in the world while he was there. Huge big game performances in the Champions League against Real Madrid, against Bayern Munich, against Barcelona as well on many occasions. Again, you can judge him through that same lens of Neymar of not being able to win the Champions League, but his record there is undeniable, and what he did domestically too.
Let's bring Alex in to get your thoughts, because you're right, the stats are incredible. 256 goals and 96 assists in 308 appearances, 6 league titles in 7 seasons at PSG. But do you have to factor in with the price tag and what that meant for PSG and the fact that he went to win a Champions League and ultimately didn't? Will that play into your thinking if you were doing this?
It depends how this all shakes out a little bit, because I think you're right in terms of we name. Well, of course he's got to win League One, but he won it 6 times. It's really impressive. Yeah. However, if we're just ranking the transfer itself, it was interesting. All of these ones, I could be wrong, like the top 5 are all from the same 3-4 year period.
Yeah.
It's a sort of period where football,
like 2019.
Yeah, where football was doing these types of transfers, and I just don't think. I think basically everyone worked out in that period that transfers aren't worth that. Basically individually.
Where's he going then?
I'm sticking him in B.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sticking him in B.
Yeah,
PSG always move him around later on.
Yeah, I think those might.
On to Ousmane Dembele, £136 million for Barcelona. Surely this is a contender for E.
For E? I think that's a bit harsh.
Surely.
I'd probably have him in D, to be honest. I think when Dembele was fit at Barcelona, he was good there. He was productive. I think he got 40 goals, 40 assists in 150 games or so.
40 goals, 42 assists in 185.
Injuries did hold him back. I think he held himself back in certain moments as well, with maybe certain off-the-pitch things and stuff like that. But again, when he was fit, he was more productive than maybe some of these other guys that we're going to look at as absolute distinctive no-brainer flops. I think he was better than the likes of some of the other guys we're going to talk about now. But
do you have to factor in the price tag as well? Because obviously people talk about 100 million being an incredible amount of money. Like these three players, see, you talk about 198 for Neymar, 166 from Mbappe, 136. Yeah. Surely that has to be factored in when you're ranking them amongst others.
Question: if he hadn't won the Ballon d'Or, like we're in a different timeline, do you think because we're talking about that transfer?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think you'd view it differently? Because at the minute it just looks like an early.
He never started
in
20 league games.
Yeah, but again, like I said, injuries did hold him back to an extent.
But you've got to factor that in.
Of course, of course. You're not necessarily getting the full value for money. Like it's an insane price tag. I'm not saying that he should be in B or C. I think he'd go in D for me. I think E's reserved for like these bona fide kind of like.
Put him in D. Let's hunt for an E.
I don't think he flopped at Barcelona.
I heard that. I would say.
Yeah, I think this is probably.
He actually won the World Cup as well while he was at Barcelona, but obviously that's. We're talking about the club specifically, but worth just factoring in.
Coutinho would be the first E.
Okay.
146 million. Again, like these two joined. So Dembele joined in the same summer that Neymar left Barca to go to PSG, and then Coutinho joined in the January following that. So you have to kind of judge them through the lens of being able to fill the boots of, one of the best players in the world at that time, and neither of them really lived up to that. Dembele, like I said, was more productive. Coutinho, I think it was. I can't remember the exact goals and assist numbers, but it was not very productive
26
at all.
goals, 13 assists in 106 games.
Yeah, and then it ended up at Aston Villa on loan a few years down the line. Went to Bayern Munich on loan and actually helped knock Barcelona out of the Champions League.
Stat, actually.
Yeah, it's not great.
You sign someone for 146 million and then you loan him
twice
to a rival in the Champions League and then scores against you. That's got to be crazy.
So if he's in E, I think this next name we're going to talk about, Cristiano Ronaldo, is a really tough placement. Because his record, 101 goals, 134 games, 2 league titles in 3 years.
Yeah, again, I mean...
Top scorer in all 3 seasons at Juventus.
I think Juventus obviously made, this is the most marquee signing they've ever made, right? So it's like you do it through, right, let's go back and win the Champions League. Let's dominate European football like we had a period of kind of doing. We know we're going to win Serie A, even though it's obviously a very competitive league now, but they had the kind of monopoly over it for that time. They were winning back-to-back. They won 10 years in a row? They won Serie A from. So Ronaldo wasn't necessarily going to be the needle mover to then help them establish that dominance domestically. But again, you kind of have to judge it in the same way of Mbappe and Neymar in terms of he was the guy or they brought him in to be the guy to help them do that on the European stage as well. But again, you can't ignore his record there. And I don't think it's just down to him they didn't win a Champions League. So I'd put him in B. Like, not insane money. Obviously, he was kind of at the tail end of his career at that point. Still did really well. I think B's fair.
I think it's fair because you've got just important to know this is based on the transfer, not the player. Like the player Cristiano would have so high, but it's the transfer we're based on.
To that specific club,
exactly. So next up, Eden Hazard. Alex, let's start with you. For 130 million to Real Madrid.
I wonder whether
7 goals.
Which is £18.5 million per goal scored.
The thing I always remember about Hazard was it John Terry who said he used to train with his laces undone?
Yeah.
I think he was sort of maybe a bit of a victim of this change in football culture where it feels like everything is so intense all the time. He's just slightly from that old school. And they just took a gamble at a time where football, I think, was shifting a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he's part of that shirky kind of, which is kind of coming back now.
Yeah.
But I just think it was bad timing, just really bad timing.
44 starts in 4 seasons. For such a
Joao Felix.
Great player, cool.
Yeah, so second most expensive teenager in history. His record for Atletico wasn't actually awful compared to some of these other guys, but again, just failed to kind of live up to the hype. I don't think
He did win a league title.
He did win a league title in COVID,
Atletico.
I would probably... You could easily make the argument for him being in this bottom tier. And obviously what's happened with Felix since then as well, he's never quite lived up to the hype wherever he's gone, but you have to judge this transfer in isolation. They didn't get the full value for money, but I don't think it's as extremely a flop as maybe these guys.
Do you ever found his best position? I know it's such an obvious talking about, but I mean, that's my thing with Felix, is like he just never seemed to find the best role for him.
And that was evident at Chelsea as well, because he became like another guy that they signed that was like not quite a striker, not quite a number 10.
Obviously very good.
But definitely a very, very talented player that just didn't live up to the hype.
So is he going D or E?
I think you can make the case for either. I would probably be a little bit more kinder maybe because these were far more established players than Felix.
You can't put him in E.
I don't think he's E. I think he's
it's
similar
a
to
fair point you
Dembele.
make. The excitement levels from Barcelona and Real Madrid fans when they both signed Coutinho and Hazard, they were marquee.
Yeah, these were
signings
world beaters at the time. So, and Felix wasn't necessarily that. And again, that's why I think you have to maybe judge someone like Griezmann maybe more harshly than someone like a Felix as well, because Griezmann was not quite on these guys' level at the time, but a tier above where Felix was, not necessarily where Felix could get to. I'd probably put Griezmann. Again, it's between D and E, I think.
He won a Copa del Rey.
He did win a Copa del Rey, but Felix won time.
A very unlucky Griezmann when he was at Barca, Atletico won the league. When he
it was a bit of a
Barca
jinx.
win the league. Obviously unbelievable for France and every players, and there's a cheap.
Yeah, incredibly underrated player. I think when you look back at what he's done in the game, like that signing just ultimately did flop, and you expected more from him. So I'd probably be more inclined to put him in E than Felix, or
Wow.
I don't know. I actually, you know what? I'd put Felix and Griezmann on the same level. I don't think they were as bad as these guys in terms of expectation.
Griezmann, specifically for that signing for Barca.
Again, if we're judging it on the transfer itself, did they get 40 mil back for him for Atletico?
Yeah, right.
2 years.
Yeah, so they kind of
sometimes it was a loan with, then they ended up paying it.
Yes, because sometimes you almost lose all of that money. They sort of dealt with it quite quickly. So as a transfer,
with Dembele, they got 50 million euros back for as well, of course.
Yeah, those two were never. They weren't harmful to them really. Yeah, I think these.
Okay.
Jack Grealish, I think this is one of the most overhated transfers in Premier League history. I don't think it's... I mean, I think you can make the argument for him being in B. I'd probably put him at the top end of C, because I think that you could argue that Man City maybe would have still done what they did in terms of winning that treble that year.
Do you think?
Without him, I don't think he was necessarily... Obviously, he came a couple of years before. He was an important part of what they went on to do through that. Very much trusted by Pep. You know, people always say that Pep ruined him. He became a system player there, but that was ultimately important to them going on doing what they did. But I still think maybe they could have done that without him. I don't think he was that needle mover kind of piece to elevate them from like, yes, we're going to dominate domestically, but let's now go and win the treble. Let's go and put it all together and threaten to dominate like City have done, obviously. I think you could put him in B. I think very high end of C, lower end of B for me. I think Grealish is an amazing player. Fitted well to what Pep wants to do.
Started the FA Cup final, started the Champions League final.
I mean, I'm happy to put him in B. Like I said, I think
your list. You put him where you want.
Do you know what? I'm going to put Grealish lower end of B, just because I do think it gets overhated quite a lot. People want to...
Let's go next to a player who's still very much in the headlines.
Yeah, I mean, this is more guaranteed C for me. I think Enzo Fernandez has been pretty good for Chelsea. I think he's bookended his time there quite well. Started, obviously, coming off the back of the World Cup hype, had a decent first 6 months. Then under Pochettino, we didn't see the best of him. Now under Maresca, I think you're starting to see the best of him again. I still think you can question maybe a bit like you said about Felix, what his best position is, because I think he suits Caicedo as a partner, but also quite like Enzo Fernandez when he's playing that a little bit further forward, kind of crashing the box. But when Palmer comes back and regains full fitness and kind of that rhythm, he's not going to be able to get that much game time there. I think he's a really good passer of the ball. He's just like 6, 7 out of 10 every week, I think, Enzo Fernandez. Is that enough to justify the money? Is that his fault? No,
big
not
leader
really.
in the team though at the moment.
I think a big personality, big game player
captain
as well. I think there'll be people that will be really quick to judge him and put him down this lower end. But I think for me, he's slap bang in the middle, Enzo Fernandez.
Feels a bit like January tax for me. It was January.
Yeah,
it was off the back of the World Cup.
Yeah.
I'm putting him in C.
I think, one of those captains at Chelsea behind Reece James, isn't he, as well? So
I'm a big game player.
So next up, a player that's having an unbelievable season, has been since, and again, we're talking about this signing, Declan Rice, under the 5. Let's come to Alex first, because he's an Arsenal fan.
Would you actually put him in
A?
Would you, bearing in mind you can only have one player in A, would he be...
No, I'm joking. I think if he wins the title, I think it's arguably an A. I don't know, people might say it's only one trophy, but the consistency he has shown since he's come to Arsenal...
Yeah.
He, for me, is the best midfielder in the Premier League, sort of all round. You could say other players have certain qualities that are better or worse, whatever, but overall, his whole package of a game, he is the leader of this team. There's people who would take the captaincy off. I wouldn't personally. Would take the captaincy of Martin Odegaard and give it to Declan Rice. He's everything good about Arsenal right now, and he has been for like 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I
always plays, doesn't he? I think he's played in 89
everything.
Of Arsenal's last 92
and that's another really good point.
games.
A lot of these guys have had big availability issues.
Yeah, they have.
Big availability issues.
And that's the thing, it's one of those things where it does kind of make you sympathise with them, but if you're judging it in the kind of whole cold, hard number of the transfer fee, then that will go against them. Whereas Rice, people always say that the best ability is available, isn't it? He's always there. And I think people will point to Rice against Real Madrid in the Champions League last year. Look at the 2 free kicks. His performance in the Bernabeu was just unbelievable. He's a huge game player. I think he and the next guy we're going to talk about are clearly the 2 best value for money, £100 million signings. And he would be, I mean, we're not doing it in order, but he would be the top, I think, of B.
He's in B for you?
Okay.
Even before a title, really?
Yeah, I think Rice is. I think he's the
player.
biggest needle mover signing I think Arsenal actually made in the last.
I think he's the only player, other than the two players who signed this summer in this list, that hasn't won a trophy yet.
That's true, and I think we're doing it on it. If he goes his Arsenal career, and I hate to say this, but he's not. He is going to win a trophy at some point.
He will.
If he was to go his whole Arsenal career without doing that, obviously you would judge it differently. But if you're judging him on what he's done right now, he's not the reason they haven't won something.
No.
He's the guy that I think has helped them get the closest they've got. So
World Cup soon
And speaking of winning trophies, Jude Bellingham is next up. Obviously, he's won La Liga's, Champions League, UEFA Super Cup.
Yeah.
Big part of
I think
what Real Madrid have done.
All context considered, when you think of the scrutiny that English players go over to La Liga with, or kind of foreign players generally, really, to do what he did and land so quickly coming from Borussia Dortmund. I think you could argue that even though there's a lot of hype around Bellingham at the time, he's maybe taken one of the biggest, if not the biggest, steps up in terms of these moves as well. Obviously, when he landed there, he was Real Madrid's Player of the Year. I think Vinicius Junior only scored more goals than him in that season. Big performances in big games. He scored the last-minute winners in both El Clasicos that year as well, just landing in the biggest games straight away. Nobody questions the price tag. Real Madrid fans and the Spanish media seem to rate him more than we do, which I think is, that says a lot in terms of what he's been able to do and kind of shut away so much of the noise. I think I've been a little bit maybe more disappointed with him a bit more recently, and I think I wanted to see him do a little bit more in bigger Champions League games potentially. I didn't think he was great actually against Arsenal last year, but he's an amazing player that is criminally over-hated by sections of our media and our public.
Is he an A then?
He's A for me.
I think as well with Jude as well, you're right, there's a lot of talk has been made, and some people say unfairly, about this season. He has a lot of scrutiny this season, but the year when they won those trophies, La Liga title, Champions League and the UEFA Super Cup, so that was in 23-24, he was actually La Liga's Player of the Season. You think of the plethora of talent that Real Madrid had available, he was the one that was Player of the Season.
Yeah.
I used to live with a Real Madrid fan, my mate called Jules, and the journey they go on through a season, honestly, one loss, it's like get them all out.
I know.
We've just seen it with Xabi Alonso at the moment.
The culture is something I can't really relate to, so credit to him to come through that.
Would he be your, just quickly,
He'd be my A,
he would be your A as well, yeah.
Next up, Moises.
I think I'd agree with that.
Moises Caicedo, I think you've got to put him in. He's in B straight away.
Do you want to get it?
Thanks, mate. Yeah. Again, I think I would have Rice over him. I think
just below Rice.
I think Rice has probably been slightly more transformative for Arsenal than Caicedo has been for Chelsea, but I think you are splitting hairs to an extent there. He has won 2 trophies. People will look to discount the Club World Cup. You can kind of make your own mind up about how relevant you think that is as a trophy. Obviously won the Conference League there as well. Played every game for Chelsea last season. I think, again, in terms of being a specialist in his position, I think he is arguably the best in the league in terms of an out-and-out defensive midfielder. I mean, we do this Caicedo-Rice kind of dance and debate so often that you don't really want to get into it again, but, 10 more million than Declan Rice. It's basically the same transfer fee. I think Rice has just maybe had slightly more impact, but it's clearly a B. He's been brilliant for Chelsea.
Okay. Next up, another player that you'd imagine me pretty high, Harry Kane. Since he's gone to Bayern, he'd be pushing A, would he?
Yeah, B. I think, I think he would be pushing A, but I think Bellingham's a level above. His numbers are ridiculous. Obviously, I mean, I love Harry Kane more than anyone, but he didn't win the title in the first year that he went there. Did last season. They could win the Champions League this year. They're looking pretty scary, Bayern Munich. Obviously, form has tailed off a little bit recently. They had an electric start to the season. But Kane is getting better as he's getting older.
Yeah, scary.
Full value for that £100 million. He was only £100 million because the fact that he's only had 1 year left on his Spurs contract anyway.
So I think
to clarify,
yeah, exactly. He was 85 million, wasn't he, plus add-ons, and he had 1 year left on his deal. So the fact that Spurs extracted that much money for him, was worth more than what Bayern actually paid for him. So he's just a clear
114 goals, 27 assists, and just 120 appearances.
Fastest player in the history of the top 5 leagues to 100 goals for a single club.
And joint top scorer in the Champions League as well.
Maybe
there's put a cap on B.
B's, I know.
There's maybe a couple there that I think.
Should we do the two Liverpool lads together? Because obviously they've both signed this summer, and a lot has been said, and both had, for context, amazing seasons last season, but obviously this season hasn't worked out for either. This is on the transfer to Liverpool we're doing this on, so thoughts on both of them and where you put them?
So one's higher than the other for me. I would have Wirtz in C and I'd have Isak in D for now. I think Wirtz, you've seen enough. You're not seen loads of substantial kind of return yet. I think it's only 3 assists across all competitions, but only Szoboszlai has created more chances than him. Wirtz also could have had a couple of goals as well. I mean, it's been well documented and referenced with against Frankfurt. He's been. I think Wirtz has actually been pretty decent. I think it's you have to judge Isak more harshly than him, even though Isak essentially gave himself kind of a summer off to kind of force that move through.
Do you not factor in with Isak that he did miss parts of the season?
That's on him.
And
I think that's on him though, isn't it? Whereas I think Wirtz is obviously adjusting and adapting to a new league. And I think the cream, obviously people criticise these Bundesliga signings that come over. There isn't the biggest necessarily hit rate when they come over. But I think in terms of the quality technical players, I think Wirtz will definitely kind of rise to the top. And he will be a good signing for Liverpool.
OK, sticking where you think.
He goes C.
I would put Wirtz in C.
Isak's going D,
what do you think of those placements?
I only think it's because Isak will obviously come good at Liverpool. He's too good not to, right? Famous last word.
We're judging the transfer. You say, will it? Why?
I think he's caused problems with the Ekitike situation, and that's what I would say.
I think until they change the system, I don't see how it works.
Stick him up.
So where would you have him?
Isak, I'd have him in D. I think I'd agree. Like, you can't put. He's been there about 5 minutes. You can't put him in E. But I think.
Yeah.
I just think in the summer, I think they basically got. It was sort of sunk cost fallacy. They'd gone after him for so long.
Yeah.
And that whole protracted thing, we have to sign him.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure they should have.
Yeah, and I think he's created headaches and problems. Obviously, with the Ekitike situation, did they necessarily need to do that? They could have invested in other areas of the squad that would have seen them become a more balanced team. Obviously, they've had issues at the back. Maybe could have signed another midfielder potentially as well to help bolster that squad and help them compete. They are finding an issue in terms of getting them both in the team. So, both in the team, so Ekitike and Isak.
Looking at that, Neymar and Mbappe are the only ones that I might think about pushing to see. Would you agree?
I think Grealish is maybe in that as well.
Okay. Well, let's let me think. There is confirmation. We see it again. There's the board. There is confirmation of Ben's rank. As you can see, Jude Bellingham in A. He's got Coutinho and Hazard in E. Let us know what you think of those thoughts at home and which ones you would change. Interesting debate.